Chapter 1. The Invisible Walls of Later. Solution. I will put a small note in my calendar to confirm the current price list with the accounting team before the call. Worry. My internet connection might drop. Solution. I will set up a quick A and B task reminder to double-check my phone's hotspot is ready as a backup. By thinking through these negative possibilities and preparing for them, you transform the paralyzing energy of anxiety into the focused energy of preparation. You use the fear of failure to fuel the action of success. Embracing small, structured failure. Another reason we procrastinate is our aversion to failure. We see failure as a terminal judgment of our capability. To overcome the fear of judgment, you must intentionally seek out small, low-stakes failures. This is the training ground for resilience. Think about the development of an app like ANB Task or Afghan G. No software is perfect on the first try. It requires continuous, small failures, bugs, poor design choices, negative user feedback that are then fixed and improved. This process is called iteration. Your life should be the same. Choose a small task today, something you usually put off, and give yourself permission to do it poorly. The goal: write an email you're avoiding, but make it messy and unpolished. The win: you sent the email, you survived the mess, and you received no judgment. Every time you execute an imperfect but complete task, you teach your brain that action is safe and that failure is information, not identity. You realize that the cost of doing is almost always lower than the anxiety-induced cost of delaying. Key takeaway for Chapter 3. The highest hurdles in procrastination are rooted in fear and anxiety. Sift pessimism to lower your expectations and channel your anxious. Introduction. The universal struggle. We've all been there, staring at a screen, a sink full of dishes, or a critical report, knowing exactly what we should be doing. Yet, somehow, the gravitational pull of anything else, social media, a sudden urge to organize your sock drawer, or even just staring blankly, becomes irresistible. This isn't a character flaw. It's not a sign of laziness or a lack of ambition. It's procrastination, and it's a deeply human experience. Think of it as a silent, invisible wall standing between you and your goals. This wall is built not of stone, but of 1,000 whispers that all say the same thing: later. But what if I told you that procrastination isn't really about time management? It's not about not having enough willpower. It's about emotional management. It's about the way your brain is wired to avoid negative feelings. Unmasking the true culprit. The common myth about procrastination is that we simply choose to delay tasks because we're disorganized or lazy. We self-label as bad at time management. However, modern psychology and decades of research tells a much more nuanced story. The tasks we avoid are rarely the easy, fun ones. We generally procrastinate on things that trigger uncomfortable emotions: fear, anxiety, boredom, frustration, insecurity, or self-doubt. For example, why do you put off starting that massive work project? It's not just the task itself. It's the anxiety about not doing it perfectly, the fear of judgment, or the sheer frustration of a complex beginning. Your brain, in its well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful way, sees these uncomfortable emotions and throws up a defense mechanism: avoidance. By delaying the task, you get an immediate, short-lived hit of relief. That temporary relief is the true reward for procrastination, and it's why the cycle is so addictive. You are training your brain to associate avoidance with comfort, effectively reinforcing the very habit you want to break. The anatomy of the later loop. To defeat procrastination, we first need to understand the loop we're stuck in. It usually follows 4 predictable steps. The trigger. A task appears on your radar. This could be a deadline, an email notification, or just remembering something you need to do, like scheduling a doctor's appointment. The uncomfortable emotion. You immediately register the task as difficult, boring, frustrating, or overwhelming. This creates an emotional response, usually anxiety or resistance. The avoidance strategy. Instead of facing the emotion and the task, you switch gears. You open YouTube, check Instagram, decide to quickly clean your desk, or start researching a new hobby. This is the act of procrastination. The temporary relief and the guilt. For a short while, you feel better. The immediate emotional pain of the task has vanished. However, this is quickly followed by the secondary negative emotions, guilt, self-loathing, and increased anxiety as the deadline looms closer. This guilt then makes you feel worse about reviewing the foundation. In Chapter 1, we established a crucial truth. Procrastination is a strategy for emotional avoidance. It's your brain's clumsy attempt to sidestep feelings like anxiety, boredom, and inadequacy. We started dismantling this by externalizing tasks, using tools like A and B task, and by employing the 2-minute rule to bypass the anxiety of starting. Now, we need to get specific. We must stop treating all procrastination the same. The anxiety you feel when starting a massive, ambiguous project is different from the mind-numbing boredom of filing expense reports. To truly conquer the later loop, you must become a detective and identify the specific emotional trigger for each task you avoid. The 4 phases of avoidance. Procrastination usually stems from one of 4 core emotional problems related to the task. Anxiety/fear. This is triggered by tasks that are complex, high stakes, or new. You fear failure, judgment, or simply not knowing where to begin. Example: starting your 7,000-word audiobook script before you broke it down. Boredom/drudgery. This is triggered by repetitive, low-stimulus tasks. The task is easy, but your brain craves stimulation and recoils from the monotony. Example: cleaning out your email inbox or updating a spreadsheet. Ambiguity, overwhelm. This is triggered by tasks that are poorly defined or too large. You don't know the next action, and the scope feels impossibly vast. Example: improve my website or get into better shape. Resentment, rebellion. This is triggered by tasks you feel forced to do, usually by external pressure or authority. You subconsciously rebel by delaying, maintaining a false sense of control. Example: mandatory corporate training or a request from a boss you dislike. The trigger log exercise. To gain mastery, you need to track these feelings. For the next week, every time you catch yourself procrastinating on a task, pause for 30 seconds and ask 2 simple questions. You can even create a simple trigger log within your task notes. What task am I avoiding right now? Be specific. Not work, but write the first paragraph of the Q3 report. What emotion am I avoiding? Be honest. Is it fear of failure, boredom, or overwhelmed by scope? By performing this simple audit, you move the problem from the realm of vague guilt into the clear light of diagnosis. Once you know the specific emotional barrier, you can select the correct psychological tool to dismantle it. Tool 1. Combating boredom with temptation bundling. Let's start with a common and insidious form of avoidance. Boredom, drudgery. These are the tasks that don't cause anxiety, but cause a low-grade, persistent urge to check out. The psychological intervention here is a technique called temptation bundling, K. Creating more resistance the next time, feeding the loop all over again. The power of A and B task and procrastination. To begin breaking this cycle, we need to focus on what you can control right now, the starting mechanism. This is where a simple, reliable system comes in handy. You need a way to capture tasks without letting them become overwhelming emotional monsters. Think about your productivity app, Anby Task. Tools like this are not just storage units for tasks. They are a mechanism for offloading the anxiety from your brain onto a safe, neutral list. By writing down a task, even a massive one, you trick your brain into feeling like some progress has been made, reducing the initial emotional load. This brings us to the concept of procrastination. This is the urge to get things done immediately, even if it's inconvenient, simply to move them off your mental plate. It's the opposite of procrastination. While some studies suggest procrastination can lead to choosing easier tasks over important ones, we can harness its core principle: the psychological benefit of completion. Instead of waiting until the negative emotions are overwhelming, procrastination is about cultivating a bias toward action, even tiny action. The 2-minute rule, your starter pistol. The biggest emotional hurdle is starting. Once you start, you often discover the task is less painful than the idea of the task. To bridge this gap, we will adopt the 2-minute rule. If a task can be done in 2 minutes or less, do it now. Need to send that quick email? 2 minutes. Do it now. Need to wash one coffee mug? 2 minutes. Do it now. Need to create the first heading in your report? 2 minutes. Do it now. But here's the more powerful application. For any large task you are avoiding, you only need to commit to working on it for 2 minutes. When you face that anxiety-inducing project, don't tell yourself, "I need to work on this for 2 hours." Tell yourself, "I'm only going to work on this for 2 minutes." Setting this ridiculously low bar bypasses your brain's emotional defense system. It's too small to trigger the fear, boredom, or self-doubt. Often, once those 2 minutes are up, you'll find yourself in the flow and continue working. If not, you've still won, because you've broken the spell of avoidance and earned that small hit of relief without the later guilt. Key takeaway for Chapter 1. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, not a time management one. Your brain is trying to protect you from uncomfortable feelings. The first step to overcoming it is to acknowledge the true nature of the wall. It's built of anxiety, and to equip yourself with tools to gently nudge yourself into action. By committing to a system like A and B task to externalize your tasks, and by rigorously applying the 2-minute rule, you begin the process of retraining your brain to associate action with relief, not avoidance. In Chapter 2, we will dive deeper into identifying the specific emotional triggers behind your biggest procrastination habits, and learn how to dismantle them using a technique called temptation bundling. Chapter 2. Identifying your emotional triggers and the power of bundling. The core idea is simple. Pair a high temptation activity, something you want to do, with a low temptation activity, something you need to do. You only allow yourself to indulge in the desirable activity while you are simultaneously working on the undesirable one. Temptation bundling formula. I will, enjoyable activity, only while I am doing dreaded task. Think about your favorite distraction. Is it listening to a specific podcast? Watching a particular show? Eating a special snack? Dreaded task. Need to do. Enjoyable activity. Want to do. The bundle. Folding laundry. Listening to a true crime audiobook. You can only listen to the audiobook while folding. Doing the dishes. Calling your best friend. You can only chat with them while washing. Exercising on a treadmill. Watching a new movie on Netflix. The show only plays while you're walking. Export to Sheets. The magic. You stop thinking of the dreaded task as a boring chore and start seeing it as the key that unlocks your reward. You begin to look forward to the bundle, shifting the emotional valence of the entire experience from negative to positive. This is a direct behavioral strategy for managing the emotion of boredom. Tool 2. Combating ambiguity with chunking and the 5-step plan. The second major trigger is ambiguity overwhelm, often associated with a lack of clear starting action. When a task is too big, your brain freezes. The solution is chunking, or radical deconstruction. Take the immense task and break it down until the first step is so small it triggers the 2-minute rule. Let's take the task. Create the marketing plan for the Afghan app launch. Instead of adding that massive phrase to your list, break it down. Define. Write a 1-sentence goal for the plan. Outline. Create a 5-point bullet outline of the plan's sections. Draft. Research 3 competitor social media strategies. Schedule. Block 30 minutes in the calendar for step 1 and 2. Do. Execute step 1. Write the goal. Notice how step 5 is now small, defined, and requires minimal emotional investment. You've transformed the giant emotional trigger, the marketing plan, into a manageable, purely logistical next action. This technique manages the emotion of overwhelm by giving your brain clarity and a sense of immediate direction. Key takeaway for Chapter 2. Stop fighting procrastination blindly. Start fighting it intelligently by identifying the specific emotional trigger you are avoiding: anxiety, boredom, ambiguity, or resentment. Once identified, combat boredom. Use temptation bundling to pair the chore with a desirable reward, making the task the entry ticket to enjoyment. Combat ambiguity. Use chunking and radical deconstruction to break massive tasks into tiny, specific, emotionally neutral next actions. In Chapter 3, we will tackle the biggest emotional trigger of all: anxiety and fear. We will explore a powerful cognitive technique known as defensive pessimism and learn how to use small, structured failure as a tool for success. Chapter 3. Conquering Fear. The anxiety-proofing power of low expectations. Approximately 1,000 words. Start of script. The deepest wall. Fear and anxiety. In Chapter 2, we learn to manage the low-grade resistance of boredom and the overwhelming weight of ambiguity. We use temptation bundling and chunking to gently redirect our focus. But now, we address the biggest emotional wall of all: fear and anxiety. Fear is not a simple emotion in the context of procrastination. It's a complex cocktail of worries. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, what will others think? And perhaps most paralyzing, the fear of success. What if my life changes and I can't handle it? This type of high-stakes task avoidance is common, especially when your goals involve a significant leap in your career, finances, or personal identity, like launching a major project, creating a new product like Afghan, or starting a business. The anxiety around these tasks is so powerful that your brain uses procrastination as a form of self-sabotage, keeping you safe by keeping you small. The paradoxical tool, defensive pessimism. To tackle this high-anxiety procrastination, we are going to use a powerful, counterintuitive cognitive strategy: defensive pessimism. This is not simple pessimism. It is a motivated, proactive strategy. The goal is not to dwell on the negative, but to use the energy of anxiety to drive preparation, rather than avoidance. When you are a high-achieving perfectionist, you set incredibly high expectations. If you fail, the fall is catastrophic to your self-worth. Procrastination shields you from that potential impact. Defensive pessimism flips this script by lowering your mental expectations before you start. Here is how you apply the 3 steps of defensive pessimism. Step 1. Set the bar low, the safety net. Mentally, and only to yourself, set an unrealistically low expectation for your performance. Instead of, "This presentation has to be the best one I've ever given," try, "I'm going to aim for passable on this presentation. If I only manage to hit the first 3 points, that's okay." By setting a low bar, you drastically reduce the internal pressure and the associated fear of failure. The goal is to make the task feel safe to start. Step 2. Mental catastrophizing. The preparation engine. Now, you weaponize your anxiety. Instead of letting your worries be a vague, paralyzing hum, you define them into specific, solvable problems. Imagine the worst-case, most realistic scenarios that could happen. If you are procrastinating on a major sales call, don't just feel anxious. Detail the anxiety. Worry. I might freeze up and forget the key product feature. Worry. The client might ask a pricing question I don't know the answer to. Worry. My internet connection might drop during the presentation. This process, literally mapping out the potential failures, removes their vague, scary power. Step 3. Failure proofing, the proactive solution. For every specific worry generated in Step 2, you create a tangible, simple countermeasure. Worry. I might forget the key product feature. Solution. I will write the top 3 features on a large sticky note and place it right next to my webcam. Worry. The client might ask a pricing question I don't know. Energy into detailed, proactive preparation. By planning for failure, you prevent it from stopping you. Small, structured failure. Give yourself permission to complete tasks imperfectly. This retrains your mind to see completion as the victory, and mistakes as nothing more than helpful data points. In Chapter 4, we will shift our focus from internal emotional strategies to external environmental control. We will explore how to design your physical and digital space to make starting the work effortless, using techniques like friction reduction and the identity architecture of a focused mindset. Chapter 4. Architecting your success. The environment is everything. The lie of willpower. So far, we've learned that procrastination is an emotional problem, not a character flaw. We've fought anxiety with defensive pessimism and boredom with temptation bundling. But all of these require a continuous, conscious effort, a reliance on willpower. Here is a hard truth. Willpower is a finite resource. Every decision you make, every distraction you resist, depletes your store of mental energy. Relying on sheer willpower is a recipe for eventual burnout and a return to the later loop. The solution is to stop relying on willpower and start relying on design. We must become the architect of our environment, engineering our physical and digital spaces so that the right behavior is easy and the wrong behavior is hard. This chapter is about controlling the context so that your actions become automatic. The principle of friction reduction. In physics, friction is the force that opposes motion. In productivity, friction is the psychological and physical resistance that opposes action. Procrastination thrives on friction. Your goal is to reduce the friction for the tasks you want to do and increase the friction for the activities you don't want to do. 1. Reducing friction for positive action. Think about the task you are most likely to put off. What are the small steps required before you even start working? Every one of those steps is friction. Task. Write a critical report. Friction. Laptop is closed. The necessary files are buried on the desktop. The coffee cup is empty. The fix. the 2-second start. Your work session should be engineered to begin within 2 seconds of deciding to start. Physical nudges. If you need to run in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes. If you need to practice a musical instrument, keep it on a stand in the middle of the room, not tucked away in a case. If you need to use your productivity app, and task, keep the phone unlocked and the app open on your desk right when you sit down. Digital nudges. For writing a new chapter for this audiobook, ensure the document is already open on your screen when you wake up. For working on your Afghan G code, ensure your IDE is open and pointed to the correct file before you finish the previous day's work. The goal is to eliminate the decision to start. 2. Increasing friction for negative action. This is just as important as the first step, making distractions inconvenient. Distraction. Mindless social media scrolling. Friction. Your phone is on your desk. The fix. Make the easy choice hard. The physical barrier. Put your phone in another room or inside a drawer. The physical act of having to get up, walk, and open the drawer is often enough friction to interrupt the impulse. The digital barrier. Use website blockers or app timers that require a long, complex password to override. Better yet, have a partner or friend set the password so you can't bypass it. You should have to decide 5 separate times that you want the distraction before you get it. This forces conscious awareness onto the impulse. Identity architecture. Becoming the person who doesn't procrastinate. Environmental design gets you to take the first step. But for long-term consistency, you need to address your identity architecture. This is the deepest layer of habit formation. Your actions follow your identity. Right now, you might subconsciously identify as, I am a creative person, but I'm also a procrastinator. This identity justifies your behavior. To change, you must adopt a new identity and prove it to yourself with small actions. Step 1. Define your target identity. Don't focus on the outcome, e.g., I want a finished book. Focus on the identity, e.g., I am a writer who finishes what they start. Instead of, I need to clean my office, try, I am an organized professional. Instead of, I should check my ANBI task list, try, I am a reliable executor. Step 2. Prove the identity with tiny votes. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are. You don't need to cast a monumental vote every day. You just need to cast consistent, small votes in favor of your new identity. The task. You have 10 emails to send. The vote. Sending just the first email, even a 2-sentence one, is a vote for, I am a decisive professional. Procrastination is overcome not by one massive behavioral change, but by 1,000 tiny, daily proofs of your new identity. By setting your clothes out the night before, you are not just reducing friction. You are casting a vote for, I am a disciplined person who values their fitness. Key takeaway for Chapter 4. Stop fighting your procrastination with fragile willpower. Start designing your environment. Reduce friction. Set up your workspace for a 2-second start. Make the path to productive work effortless. Increase friction. Insert barriers, both physical and digital, between yourself and your top distractions. Shift identity. Define the person you want to become, the identity architecture, and cast small, consistent votes every day that reinforce that new belief. Chapter 5. Defeating Future Self. Mastering Time Perception. The illusion of future time. We have addressed the fear, the boredom, and the friction that cause us to say later. But who is this later person? It's your future self. When we procrastinate, we engage in a cognitive deception. We genuinely believe that our future self will be more motivated, less busy, and magically equipped with the focus and energy that present self lacks. We delegate all the unpleasant or difficult work, like that complex feature for the Afghanji app, to a hypothetical superhero who doesn't exist. This split between present self, who is tired and wants relief, and future self, who is supposedly superhuman, is called temporal discounting, and it's the engine of chronic procrastination. We value the immediate relief of avoiding a task far more than the long-term benefit of completing it. Technique 1. Time travel empathy. To bridge the gap between your present self and future self, you must practice time travel empathy. You need to stop viewing future self as a mythical hero and start viewing them as your current self, only older and burdened by your current poor choices. The exercise. Visualize future self. Close your eyes and imagine yourself 24 hours from now. Visualize the state you will be in if you do not start that dreaded task today. Where are you? How does your body feel? What is the specific low-grade stress you will be carrying? You will realize future self is just as tired or likely more stressed than you are now. Define the gift. Now, choose one small, immediate action you can take on a task listed in NB Task. Something that takes 5 to 15 minutes. This action is a gift you give to your future self. Acknowledge the relief. When you complete the small task, like completing a tiny bug fix or sending a short, overdue email, pause. Acknowledge the emotional relief and mental clarity you have just saved your future self. By performing this exercise, you turn an abstract concept, future self, into a real person you care about. You shift the motivation from avoiding pain now to ensuring comfort later. Technique 2. Radical scheduling and the power of constraints. Procrastinators often mistake free time for scheduled time. When a difficult task is put on your calendar as work on project, your brain sees an ambiguous block and easily substitutes it with an easy, distracting activity. The solution is radical scheduling, which means two things. A. Pre-decide your next actions. Remember chunking from Chapter 2? This is the scheduling version of it. Never leave a work session without scheduling the exact next action you will take. Bad entry. Monday, 9 a.m. Start Chapter 6. Too ambiguous. Good entry. Monday, 9 a.m. Write the first 2 bullet points of the Embracing Constraints section of Chapter 6. This detail eliminates decision-making friction and prevents your future self from having to think and procrastinate about what to do next. B. Embrace constraints. The Parkinson's Law breaker. Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself 8 hours to do a 4-hour task, it will take 8 hours. Procrastination loves open-ended time. You must impose artificial constraints. Instead of scheduling a 2-hour block to work on your budget, schedule 2 focused 25-minute sprints. Use a timer for 25 minutes. During that time, your only goal is relentless focus, not perfection, just focus. When the timer goes off, you must stop, take a mandatory 5-minute break, and review your one next action in NB Task. This technique combats the emotional triggers of both ambiguity, 25 minutes is less overwhelming than 2 hours, and perfectionism. You are racing the clock, forcing you to prioritize completion over flawless execution. Technique 3. The completionist mindset. The 80% rule. Perfectionism is procrastination in a tuxedo. It tells you, don't start until you know how to do it perfectly, or don't finish until it's flawless. This leads to endless delays. To break free, You must adopt the completionist mindset and the 80% rule. The goal is to get the task to 80% completion, the point where it is fundamentally done and only requires minor polishing. The difference between 80% and 100% takes the majority of the time, causes the majority of the stress, and is what we most frequently procrastinate on. Give yourself permission to prioritize completion over quality on the first draft. Focus on getting all the words on the page, the core code written, or the core feature of Afghan-G built. Once the 80% version exists, the project has momentum, and your brain is much less anxious about tackling the remaining 20%, the polishing. Key takeaway for Chapter 5. Procrastination relies on the delusion that your future self will save you. Practice time travel empathy to see future self not as a hero, but as a real person, deserving of your help today. Use radical scheduling to define the specific, tiny next action to be taken in every block of time. Embrace the 80% rule and the completionist mindset to defeat perfectionism, recognizing that done is always better than perfect but delayed. Chapter 6. The Compassion Cure. Sustaining change with self-forgiveness. The cruelest taskmaster, your inner critic. You've implemented the 2-minute rule, used and-be task to define your smallest next actions, and even engineered your office to launch into work on the Afghan-G project. But one morning, you slip up. Maybe you miss a scheduled time block, or perhaps you spend an entire afternoon scrolling instead of writing. What happens next is the real danger. The inner critic awakens. It whispers, or maybe screams, "See, I knew you couldn't stick with it. You're lazy. This whole effort was a waste of time. Why even try?" This cycle of shame, guilt, and self-criticism is one of the biggest roadblocks to long-term change. Research shows that self-criticism, far from being motivating, actually increases the likelihood of future procrastination. When you feel ashamed, your brain defaults back to its old emotional defense mechanism: avoidance. You avoid the task to avoid the feeling of being a failure. To sustain your progress, you must replace the inner critic with the inner coach. The practice of self-compassion. Self-compassion is not self-pity or letting yourself off the hook. It is simply treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and acceptance you would offer a struggling close friend. It rests on 3 core components. 1. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. Instead of mentally punishing yourself for a mistake, acknowledge the pain of the setback without excessive judgment. Inner critic. I wasted 3 hours. I'm worthless. Inner coach. I slipped up and lost some time, and that's frustrating. It happens to everyone. Now, let's see what I can do with the time I have left. This small shift in language moves you from a fixed mindset, where failure defines you, to a growth mindset, where failure is a temporary event that can be learned from. 2. Common humanity versus isolation. Procrastination makes us feel isolated, as if we are the only ones struggling. This is a lie. Every successful entrepreneur, artist, or athlete, even the most disciplined person you know, has struggled with delay, distraction, and self-doubt. When you procrastinate, remind yourself, this is a universal human experience. I am not a unique failure. This shift immediately reduces the shame, allowing you to access the logic and problem-solving parts of your brain instead of freezing in emotional distress. 3. Mindfulness versus over-identification. Mindfulness, in this context, means noticing your emotional reaction to procrastination without getting swept away by it. When you realize you're spiraling into guilt, step back and observe the feeling. Don't ignore the guilt, but don't become the guilt. See it as an event passing through your consciousness. Observe. I am feeling a strong wave of anxiety because I haven't started my task yet. Act. Use your and-be task list to immediately find a 2-minute rule action. The antidote to guilt isn't wallowing, it's action, however small. The self-compassionate recovery protocol. Mistakes will happen. Progress is not linear. When you fall off the wagon, follow this 3-step protocol to recover immediately, rather than letting one slip-up derail your entire system. Step 1. The 5-minute forgiveness. Immediately stop the negative activity, scrolling, excessive gaming, etc. Set a timer for 5 minutes. During this time, forbid yourself from thinking about the task you avoided. Instead, think only of what you need to do to feel physically settled. Take deep breaths, stretch, or grab a glass of water. Forgive yourself for the past hour. It's done. Step 2. Diagnostic check. After the 5 minutes, don't rush back into the deep end. Look at the task you avoided and apply the lessons from Chapter 2. What was the trigger? Was the task too ambiguous? Chunk it down into a tiny step. Was the task too anxious? Set your expectations low using defensive pessimism. Was the task too boring? Add a temptation bundle for the next 15 minutes. The goal is to analyze the system failure, not the personal failure. Step 3. The smallest next action. Re-entry. Consult your and-be task list and find the absolute smallest, most trivial action related to your goal. The thing that will take 120 seconds or less. If you are working on your Afghan G feature, perhaps the smallest action is just opening the correct file. If you are writing, it's writing 1 sentence. By forcing yourself to take that single, easy step, you rebuild momentum and cast a small, immediate vote for your desired identity as someone who follows through. Key takeaway for Chapter 6. Sustained productivity is built on resilience, not perfection. You will inevitably procrastinate. Replace your inner critic with the inner coach by applying the principles of self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Follow the self-compassionate recovery protocol, forgiveness, diagnosis, smallest action, to immediately restore momentum and prevent one small slip from becoming a massive relapse. Chapter 7. The Non-Procrastinator's Lifestyle, a Sustainable System. The Grand Summary. 7 chapters, 1 system. You've journeyed through 7 chapters, transforming your understanding of procrastination from a moral failing into a solvable emotional regulation problem. You now have a complete toolkit. Let's quickly review the core principles that form your sustainable system. Chapter 1. The Invisible Walls of Later. We learn to apply the 2-minute rule to break the anxiety of starting, always choosing action over avoidance. Chapter 2. Identifying your emotional triggers. We diagnose the specific feelings you avoid, boredom, ambiguity, anxiety, and use temptation bundling to make boring tasks appealing. Chapter 3. Conquering fear. We utilize defensive pessimism and structured failure to channel anxiety into preparation, recognizing that done is better than perfect. Chapter 4. Architecting your success. We leveraged friction reduction to make positive action automatic and started building a new identity architecture, e.g., I am a reliable executor. Chapter 5. Defeating future self. We practiced time travel empathy and used radical scheduling to overcome the illusion of having more time tomorrow. Chapter 6. The Compassion Cure. We learn to replace the inner critic with the inner coach, using self-forgiveness to sustain progress through inevitable setbacks. Every day, your goal is to manage the flow of tasks in your life using your productivity app, and be task, through this holistic lens. Embedding the habit loop. Make it part of who you are. To truly become a non-procrastinator, these techniques can't be a checklist. They must become unconscious habits. Habits are built on a simple loop: cue, routine, reward. Cue, the trigger. A time, place, or preceding action that initiates the routine. Example: the moment you sit down at your desk. Cue. Routine, the action. The actual behavior you perform. Example: you immediately open your A and B task list and identify the one item that can be done in 2 minutes. Routine. Reward, the feeling. The positive emotional payoff that reinforces the habit. Example: the feeling of relief and control from instantly completing a small task. Reward. The true reward for defeating procrastination is not finishing the task, but the relief of having started it. This is the key emotional shift. Training your brain to see starting, not delaying, as the source of comfort. For your biggest projects, like developing and marketing the Afghan app, you need a daily keystone habit. A small daily action that creates a cascade of positive effects. This might be a mandatory 30-minute block where you only focus on your most emotionally difficult task, using the 25 5-minute sprint model we discussed. The power of routine boundaries. Procrastination often bleeds into your life because you lack clear boundaries between work and rest. To sustain motivation, you must respect your downtime. Boundary 1. Shutdown ritual. You should have a mandatory 5-minute ritual to close your work session. This involves reviewing your A and B task list and writing down the specific next action you will take tomorrow. Radical scheduling. Close all files, including your main project document, and physically signal to your brain that work is finished. This prevents the "I'll just check one more thing" spiral. Boundary 2. Mental firewall. When you finish work for the day, you are done. Do not guilt yourself into thinking about tomorrow's tasks. Your time off is the reward for the work you completed. Protecting your rest ensures you replenish the energy needed for sustained focus, breaking the burnout cycle that feeds procrastination. Living as a doer. This audiobook gave you tools to manage your feelings about specific tasks. But the ultimate victory over procrastination is realizing that you are not defined by your output, but by your commitment to action. The person who finishes the audiobook script, the person who codes the next feature for Afghan, the person who tackles the boring emails first. That person isn't magically special. They simply developed a system to manage their emotional response to work. And they forgave themselves when the system broke. Your focus should never be on eliminating failure or fear. Those are permanent parts of the human experience. Your focus should be on increasing your speed of recovery. The true non-procrastinator is not someone who never delays, but someone who delays for 5 minutes instead of 5 hours, and then immediately uses their self-compassion protocol to re-engage. Commit now to casting daily votes for the identity you want to embody. The anxiety of the future is gone because you are living in the commitment of the present action. Thank you for allowing me to help you create this powerful guide. Go forth and start doing.